Well, we're back again, so welcome to another session of the 6th grade drawing project. Excuse me, my voice is really quite ragged. When we left off at the last session, we were continuing to color on our project. And really what I'm just trying to do here with coloring along with you is simply reproduce here in the e-classroom the very kind of experience that we would have in the regular physical classroom as well. So when I left off, I had been working with the red-orange because of kind of running out of time, and so I'm going to continue working with that, and I'm going to put another stripe of it up here in this upper portion of the rear part of the car, and just keep it going there. So where we're at in the drawing really is just a lot of intensive coloring for the next few sessions. When we get done with the car here, and if you're coloring at the rate that I'm coloring this in, and we work about 37 to 38 minutes each class session here, then you should, if you're keeping up with what I'm doing, that's tremendous work. So I do my very best to get the projects done the best I can get them done in the amount of time that I have allotted for the unit. And so then by demonstration here and modeling of what I'm expecting from you, you should be able to keep up with what I'm doing. And I do realize that, you know, you are less experienced at this than I am, and that I account for that. And also I realize that you may not be able to color and draw as fast as I do, and that's why you should have to slow down the video perhaps, or even pause it until you catch up with the parts of it that you're struggling to stay up with. Okay, now we've got a kind of an interesting situation here about what to do with some of the other colors, and I am going to go ahead and go back to that yellow-orange, and I'm going to place that in between the pie shapes here of my rims. I've always thought it was a neat idea just to take some color that's in the body of the car and place it in these areas here as well. So I hope your project is making good progress here. I'm pretty confident that this one will be done in the a reasonable amount of time. I've said many times to you before that projects can take as few as 10 and as many as 12 days. If we start going over 12 days, we've really spent way too much time doing the project. So the amount of time that we spend here in the e-classroom each day is about the precise amount of time that I have measured out for work time, production time during the classroom, and so we get about that same amount done here in the e-classroom, depending on the length of classes. Now there some years classes are longer than other years, and then of course some years they're 43 minutes, other years they're like 53 minutes, and so if this were a 53-minute long class, we would probably add like 8 more minutes to our production time, and then that would allow us to clean our messes up and then also be ready to transition to the next class at the end of the period. So it's really more important that you just stay productive during class, that you simply just stay on the work, than it is that you suffer over small details that can take a lot of time and may not really end up being any better after you struggle with it and fuss with it than it would have been if you would have just colored it in. So there's a lot of learning that goes on when you're coloring, believe it or not, and sometimes it just shows you that you should have just kept coloring. Sharpening pencils constantly for yourself and others, that will never get you anywhere. You'll end up with just blisters and no pencils and no work done either. So I like to take the pencil the way I find it, get as much mileage out of it as I can, and then sharpen it. Now a drawing pencil is a slightly different situation. Drawing pencil should almost always be very sharp when you start with it. So it's not proper, to take your time to sharpen up your drawing pencil, but that is a little bit easier to do than these colored pencils. Colored pencils are very prone to breakage through torque when you're twisting the pencil and the pencil sharpener. It can really crack that lead way up in here, and then people beat them against the tables and stuff. All of that is just really bad for the pencils. It's bad for your habits too. It's a terrible habit to get into, and you have to purchase your own art materials. You'd have a great deal more respect for them. Alright, so progress being made here. Just gotta, although it seems tedious, meaning it takes a lot of concentration, and you don't see immediate results with this sometimes. Well, that's the way that you make a lot of art. So if you can train yourself to have a long attention span, sustained focus over long periods of time, you will be able to achieve almost anything. So patience is really the key to success in almost any long-term project or endeavor. I believe probably art is one of the few classes where you are expected to maintain your focus on a project for over 10 days. None of them last less than 10 days, and so I may be crazy, but I think that's how long it takes to make a piece of artwork. Sometimes more than that. Pieces I've been working on for very long periods of time. They may never be done. Okay, I really like the way that orange and that yellow and that red orange all work together here. It's really starting to pop out a bit. Okay, so now the decision I've got to make, and I've got a couple of them, is that do I change the color at this time to make the car a little bit different, put a little bit of variety into it, or do I leave it the way it is? And I think what I could potentially do is perhaps continue this line right here, and it comes out on the other side of this flame right here, and everything above that could be, a different color perhaps, and then everything below it could be the same color. That's not a bad idea. Let's go ahead and just try that and see what it looks like first of all. So I'm just indexing off of this line right here. And if I continue this line right here and it stops at the door, and then it will pick up over here on the other side of the flames. Then the question is, if I was going to change that color, what color would it be? And that's a good question. So you'd have to say what would look good with red and orange. And I'll tell you what would look good would probably be that mahogany color. Let's test that up against this and see how that looks against it. Here, I'll put it right on the edge. Whoa! I lost my pencil, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so that does look pretty good against all that. And I guess I would outline it in black. What might be another good color for this? I really want to stay away from greens, because green is kind of an opposite color there, and I really don't want to use pink or peach or any sort of a brown color on it. And I could use potentially magenta. Let's try that. How's that look against that? Ah, that's pretty good. Or it could be even violet. That one has gotten a lot of use, this class. Let's try this one, because there is yellow in it, and violet and yellow go together beautifully. Well, that is certainly something to think about. And I think what I may do, though, the mahogany is probably the right color for the job. That looks pretty nice too. Violet, though, is pretty hot. And I would put that Well, I do know for a fact that everything down here is going to be that red-orange color right here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and continue with the red-orange until I finish that up. And here's my red-orange. And then I can make that decision on the upper portion at that time, I suppose. So, now, yeah, we'll just go from back here for now. Now, violet, might be an interesting color to put in there. I don't know. It'll be pretty dark, though. Pink isn't going to work. Maybe royal blue. That's a good question. Something to think about while you're coloring stuff, you know what the color is going to be. Like this part of the car right here. So you just got to think while you're kind of planning ahead what your next step might be. If you're trying to come up with a better color or a variation of it. I'll tell you what, I'm half tempted though to go with that mahogany, because that mahogany is a variation of red and it looks pretty good. That's probably the smart decision right there, isn't it? Or maybe even to make a stripe, a mahogany stripe that goes above this, and then more of this red-orange. That's a good idea too. Or I could even put a blue stripe through the middle of it, or even a green stripe. Okay. Well, that's something to think about while I'm coloring in this area. Drawing always gives you plenty of stuff to think about while you're coloring and working out all the details, especially if you're doing a lot of planning, and I really believe in that. Okay, so progress. So if your projects come along like this, you're doing fantastic work. You know, at the end of each week we do daily work grades, and if you're keeping up with the work like you're doing here, if you're keeping up with the work you see on these videos, then you should definitely give yourself good marks on your working grades. You should, if you're struggling with what it looks like, you're keeping up with the work, but you're struggling with the way the project is coming out, well then you should still give yourself a good working grade for working hard, but then you have to be realistic with yourself also, and be honest with yourself and say, I'm struggling with this particular thing, and I have not mastered the skill, and so you take some points off on your work grade and you dedicate yourself to doing a better job in the next week so that you can get more work done and you get closer to that goal, which is really just to be able to imagine things, plan out what you imagined, and then create an art project on your own. You wouldn't even need a project from a classroom or a teacher after that. So we're really just I'm just trying to put some tools in your art toolbox, okay? And if you know how to use these tools, like the design principles and color and shape and form, and how to break things down into shapes, and ask yourself what's darker or lighter in this area of what I'm coloring in or painting or whatever it is that your artwork is, then you're well on your way to be able to doing this stuff without even a class. That's what an artist does. They don't really need somebody to tell them to make art, and they most of the time don't need somebody to tell them what kind of art to make. Okay, Yeah, that's looking fantastic. I may just have to stick with the red because it looks so good. And there's plenty of it. So, sometimes you just got to go. The original plan was a good plan, so you find that out along the way, and you shouldn't fight with it. If it looks good, let it look good. Alright, well that is still looking really good. Keep at it. Maybe I will go with that mahogany. It is in the same color scheme. It is a red of sorts. Now I like to get up real close to these lines when I'm coloring on them, and not quite, you know, just barely touch it with the colored pencil, and it kind of darkens that line for you a little bit and seals it down. However, sometimes, especially if you're using generalized color, one color in a large area, you might need to go back and you know, put a fine outline over that, so that it pops out like a seam between the two body parts on the car. So that can be, you know, sometimes, and I try to minimize the use of black, but it's unavoidable. That's why it's in the colored pencil kit, I suppose, right? So we can use it to just continuously get our pencils, get our outlining. That's what it's basically for. I like to use it for. I really don't like to use it to color in large areas of the drawing. It simply just soaks up all the colors that are around it and deadens their intensity. And so just by switching to a different color that's slightly darker, you really don't have to use black that frequently. And for some reason it always seems to be in really short supply in the physical classroom. We have thousands of colored pencils in drawers, but we have to keep the black colored pencils at my desk because they get used up so quickly. Alright, so I'm continuing just to go with the red-orange color here. It almost looked completely red. And when you compare it, if you don't have another red around to compare it to, then it would look fine. Oop, I'm starting to scratch my work right there, so I need to sharpen my pencil, I suppose. Yeah, I'm very pleased with how this is coming out. And if you've got this kind of if you're getting this kind of success, then we're both enjoying a good project, and it's starting to really start to come together as an art project here, as the colors get really close to each other and it makes them stand out against their colors on either side. So like these pipes really stand out now against this red-orange. Now I try to color in all directions and then move the pencil around, roll it in your fingertips a lot so that it stays sharp. You always have that little sharp corner. Plus it extends how much coloring you can get done out of, you know, one sharpening of the colored pencil. And you go back and just address the opacity issues as you work your way through the project here. So I try to, when you color with this random approach, you get kind of a very smooth finish to the artwork, whereas if you color in one direction only, that really does show up, that grain or texture or strike to the way that you move your pencil is very obvious. You can use that a lot of times to really help the sense of motion in the picture. If you want people to follow that texture, then that would really help. And in painting, a lot of times you see that there's very fine lines or little grooves made by the paint and the paintbrush, and you use those plastic control grooves to move your viewer's eyes to things that you want them to see, because everybody wants to follow a continuous groove or a continuous line whenever they see it. It's human nature, and we see that all over the place in the world we live in. If people want us to go somewhere or stay on the road, they put lines. If they want us to park here or there, there's lines. We spend a lot of time making sure that we stay between the lines or follow the line, and so it's natural human behavior. So you put these things into a piece of artwork and people will want to look at them and follow them. So it's natural human instinct. Artists figured that out, and they use it to achieve their artistic end, as we call it. Alright, now the question is, do we go with the mahogany? Do we take a chance? And the answer is, why not? Why not? You gotta live a little bit sometimes. So where is my mahogany pencil? I'm going to put it to work. There it is. It's going to need, this one will need to be sharpened before use. Oh, that's got a great end on it there. Okay. Well, I'm going to do my sharp fin in mahogany. Although I'm half tempted to do it in straight up orange too. That might look pretty good too. Nope, gotta go with the mahogany. This is going to be fine. Alright, so progress is coming along really, really well on our project here. I'm really pleased with it. And so I think this represents day number, this could be the 7th or the 8th session that we're working on right now. And so we had a few days of lecture and notes at the beginning of it all, and so we're really closing in on the end of the unit. Each unit is about 12 or 13 days long if we can get our projects done. 14 is about the maximum that we can get. That's about as long as we can go before we start delaying other units, and then those projects never really get done. So we've got to keep to the schedule, and the lessons have been really pretty carefully planned so that they can be done in that amount of time. So if you're keeping up with me, then we're doing a fantastic job, and we will achieve our goal, which is to get through the entire art program in the time allotted for it before the end of the grading period, the end of the quarter. Okay, well, that really does look pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with that. That change in color is dramatic and nice. Alright, we got to do this over here too. So mahogany is an exotic wood, and it's really kind of a attractive color, and it's mainly red, and so it does play against the red really well. Some people would see it as brown. It does appear to be a bit on the brown side on the projection screen, but it's really a very deep brick colored red, which is what it's referred to in some color pencil kits. Brick red, they call it. And I think I've actually used this on other projects, 7th and the 8th grade projects, the 8th grade project in particular, where we actually do have bricks on the sides of buildings, and when we're drawing and coloring it out, we We use this color, and tan a lot gets in there, and the light brown. You mix those, you know, up as different colored bricks, you get a really very convincing effect. Okay, so the mahogany is the color of the day right now here. Color of the moment, at least. Alright, so, and I'm still getting some mileage out of that mahogany, so that a good working point that I had on it is doing well at this point, at this time, in this project, right here, now. Okay, opacity, gotta be opaque. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna go back here to this back stripe, make sure it's matches as well. Roll that pencil around. Plus, you know, this mahogany covers up my grid lines that were done in colored pencil for the demonstration and the instructional drawing. And so they were difficult to erase out, but this mahogany covers them up really nicely. Really nicely. Okay. I may have to sharpen in a minute here, but you just gotta keep moving if you can until you run out of time or you run out of project. We'll probably run out of project before we run out of time, and our amount of time we've got left to finish our unit. Alright. Okay. Yeah, this mahogany is a good color. It's the right color for the job today. And I wonder if I'd have thought that yesterday when I was contemplating it. Alright, I got to stop for a moment and sharpen my pencil. We'll take a look at that. That looks fantastic. Kind of comes across as almost like a mulberry color here on the projection screen, or like a cranberry color. Okay, now I can't get too greedy because when I do that I end up breaking off the point of my colored pencil tip. Okay, well, I'm going to keep at it. More mahogany. I get most of the car filled in here during this session. Now your car may have stripes on it, or polka dots, or music notes, or peace signs, or I kind of like to keep mine simple. Although the more personalized and decorative you make it, that's really good. That's adding some creativity to it. And as long as you can get the project done, see, if you get it super complicated, what happens is you just never really get it finished. And it's very difficult to color around even something like these flames sometimes. And so if you've got like a million polka dots on your car, coloring around all of those is really problematic. So my advice to most people is, you know, put polka dots on it, or stripes if you like that, but keep them wide stripes that, you know, you can get colored in quickly instead of, you know, just laboring away at one portion of the drawing for long periods of time because it's so fine and tedious. So, you know, circles or polka dots is a perfectly great idea. Just so don't put so many on there, and also make them larger so they're easier to color in and easier to color around. And that's stripes are the same way. Stars, if you were going to put those kinds of things on there. Decals or logos, you know, about your whatever your car products are, like STP oil or Lucas oil treatment or Pennzoil or Shell, all of these various manufacturers of fuel and racing products and car care products, Valvoline, Prestone, AC Delco. You see these a lot on race cars, and on when you go to car shows, you'll see a lot of the manufacturers of car parts and car accessories have booths that you can talk to them and see their products and see what application these might have in your own regular car, or if you've got a performance vehicle or a classic car. It gives you something to talk to these individuals about, what's coming out in the marketplace as far as car care products go. So it's depending on what you put on your car, you can either keep it simple or you build so much complexity into it that you'll never get it done. And that's a common problem in art. The idea is bigger than your ability to make it. So gotta keep it simple. You can always get it more complicated. It's kind of hard to uncomplicate it once you've started down that road. Okay, that also looks really, really, really good. So I got one little last section of this, and I'm closing in on being done with the coloring portion of the actual car. Could start the background maybe. Okay, another good working point there, not going to snap off on me. Now let's get to this car hood right here. Our Ford Roadster. I'm going to leave a little tiny microscopic space in between these two surfaces since they're the same color. But I'm going to come back and outline over top of that to make sure I can see it. Where the nose cone of my car meets the tires, meets the hood. Okay. Yeah, this is when you really need to protect your artwork too, and that's why I've got my hand on an index card. I don't want to smear all my colors that I've worked so hard to keep nice and bright and clean. I don't want those to end up smudged into the lighter colors. So you've just got to really be careful when you're performing a high-risk operation here like we are right now, because all of the time you've put in could be for nothing if you mess it up really bad right now. And these things happen anyway, even when you're really trying to do your best. Just sometimes stuff just blows up in your face, it just doesn't work out sometimes. And that's still learning. It's not pleasant to learn that way, but it's still learning. So a lot of people learn about cars as they end up with a car that is breaking down all the time, and they have to learn to fix it. And then next thing you know, they're fascinated by cars. I sometimes would like to, because I've tried to do this before, go back and try to remember every car I ever had. Here's one to ask your parents about. What was their first car? What was their favorite car? How many cars have they had? And you might be surprised. People have snow plows, station wagons, vans in their lifetimes. Little economy cars, big muscle cars. Alright, we're doing really well here. I'm doing really well. This session has really brought almost a sense of completion to the project that I'm working on here, at least the subject matter portion of it. Now the background can take a long time to color in too. It can take a couple sessions to get it done, at least to the minimum requirement, which is one color in the checkerboarded background. If you were able to get that done and then add a second color into the checkerboarded background, that really helps your grade on this project. That means you were really using your time effectively. Oh, and speaking of which, there is the end of our session here. So I want to finish up this little area right here, and when we return in the next session, we'll get our tires done and the detail work done and start the background. So I predict it'll probably be 2 more sessions and we'll be done with this particular art project, and we'll be ready to close up the unit, and it'll be time to take quizzes and do work grades on projects and grade the project too. So we're making progress in the days that we've been together as a E-class, or even if you're just making this up as we go. If you're for some reason missed this information and we were back in the physical classroom, I would have you go back and just check the video of this project just like we're doing it right now, and you could very much just follow along, and that's what would be happening in the physical classroom also. Okay, let's see, let's take a look at that. I declare that is a good looking car. And the mahogany really did come out okay, so I'm satisfied with that. So I'm happy to see that it didn't mess it all up, and it looks like I'm meant for it to be that way. Alright, well, we will get back together in the next session, and we'll finish up the car, and we will continue on with the background after that. So I'll talk to you next time. Have a good day. Thanks.